Okay, so welcome everyone to the workshop on how to create a poster for your research and scholarship. We are really lucky to have with us today two experts from our very own library at York, Cora Cody, who's the Indigenous Teaching and Learning Librarian, and Dana Craig, who's the Director of Student Learning and Academic Success at the libraries. We started this session and the idea for it from a working group that is hard at work planning faculty-led events for Congress that we know is coming to York in 2023 in the spring. And we have extended to our faculty and students the opportunity to show their research on a poster and also realized that that might be something that people need more help to figure out what to do and how to make that happen. And so we reached out to you and we're happy to have you here to guide us through what some of that can look like. So unless there are other questions, I imagine we can pass it over to Cora and Dana and we'll get going. I think we're ready to go. I don't see any hands.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I'm going to just share my screen and Cora will get us started. So I was going to say we're going to monitor the chat as we go, but because we're such a small group, just unmute yourself and ask questions and that will probably work. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if it's all good to go. Yeah, do you see the screen okay? Okay, good.
Looks good. Okay, so welcome to our presentation on research posters at York University Library. So as was said, I'm Cora Cody, and I'm the Indigenous Teaching and Learning Librarian, and I am also responsible for the Faculty of Education Information Literacy classes, and Dana is the Director of Student Learning and Academic Success. Go to the next slide. Okay, so a few things that we want to make sure we cover today. Number one being know your event. So what is the event about? When is it? What is the audience like? You're going to be probably giving a presentation at some point. Know what an elevator speech is. What is your elevator pitch? Also designing a research poster. So we'll have a walkthrough, a demonstration of how to do that, but we'll also talk about best practices. Next slide, please. Okay, so today you will present your topic to all of us. So it's kind of nice that we have a small group. We can get some individual attention on what you think your topic might be. If you don't have one yet, you can just make it up. But if you do have one, that's great. We can provide feedback on what you're thinking, and we'll also get you started on designing your poster. Okay, so the event, some questions that we have to make sure that we know the answers to when we're designing our poster. Okay, so let's talk. Do we know when the event is? If you know, you can shout out the answer.
It's going to be on Monday, May 29th. Is that the right number? Sorry, look at my calendar. Yes, Monday, May 29th. And there's a window of, I think, between 11:15 and 2:30. People may or may not be present by their poster. Some people may choose to do that. Others will have a poster displaying, and that will be all.
Great. So some other questions to consider is there a date for the submission before the poster event that will make sure that you get your printing done in time?
And that is March 31st.
Yeah. Thank you. And also some other things to consider on top of that. What's the atmosphere going to be like? Is it academic? Is it friendly? Is it encouraging? Will people be evaluating your posters? Is it going to be professional? Those are some things you want to consider when you're thinking about the design of your poster. So I think generally Dana has told me that Congress is usually quite friendly, but
I was going to say it might be all of those, except probably not the evaluative, but I guess we're always judging in some way, shape, or form, but not in the sense of there being a grade or anything attached to this. But okay, yeah.
And then you should also consider, is there a multidisciplinary focus, or is it disciplinary? If you put jargon on your poster, are people going to get what you're saying, or should you make sure that it's something that anybody from outside of your faculty would understand, as well as people from within your faculty? And then also considering what the expectations are. So if you're going into the poster presentation or to the Congress with an expectation that you're going to find yourself a job, that might be a little bit of a different expectation from what is actually going to happen. But if you're thinking about networking, or if you're thinking about showing people what your research is about, those are good expectations to have. And also what the expectations might be from other people, from what they might be looking for in your poster. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Actually,
Okay, so
sorry.
go ahead.
Stuff is coming up for chat as well, so I just want to make sure. Well, people may or may not have a topic, and that's okay. Lisa, you're saying, yeah, okay, perfect. I think I'm going to take it over from slide 6, but I think, and thank you, Cora, for leaving this as the point of discussion for our design question. What is the size of the poster?
Are you literally asking?
Literally asking.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if I know that yet. I do know that the Faculty of Education is covering the printing costs. My sense is, I mean, what would be a standard size, but
24 by 36?
Potentially, yeah, if that's the standard.
Yeah, well, I have to say that is, all of these questions need to be answered before you start designing your poster. Especially what is the size of your poster? Because you have to start designing at a certain dimension. And if you think you're going to be evaluated, then you put certain things in it. So we know that that's not going to be the case. But we also know that it's going to be an academic audience, right? And I still want, like, maybe the room to acknowledge out loud jargon. Is it disciplinary important for you to have it on your poster or not? And I mean academic jargon.
I mean, that's an interesting question in a larger sense about how we communicate our work. I think that would be something that would be a consideration of the participants and how they want to address an audience, whether that's a more internal audience to their own field, or whether they want to use more open language that it's accessible across disciplines, which might be something people consider in their own, in their own capacity in thinking through what they're hoping to achieve by creating a poster. So I would leave that to participants to think through. I don't think there's an answer for that in any definitive way, but it's a good thing to have people think about.
I think it's also one of those things, you have to know these answers to basically all of these questions before you put your I'm done type of hat on with your poster. And I'll give you an example in the next slide. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we want everybody in this room to just do 3 little things, and you have to make it up. If you want to make it up, please make it up, right? We want you to unmute yourself and say 3 things: your name, a poster title, and a research topic. And Cora and I will be taking notes, and we're going to be talking about how important all of these questions are to how you approach these 3 little questions. So I don't know if you want me to call out names or you do it, Lisa. I don't know, but.
Maybe people can raise their hand if they feel comfortable, or unmuting if you feel so compelled and would like to take a try. Oh,
let's give it a try. I think this session will be much more entertaining. If people take a chance, make it up. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Any first takers?
I can try. It's
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Yeah, no problem. Definitely not polished, but
no.
I'm in my 5th year, so I'm finishing. I'm just writing up the findings, so it's fairly polished. My name is Nancy, she, her, pronouns, Nancy Marshall. My poster title will probably be Applied Behavioral Analysis, a Mixed Methods Analysis of Lived Experiences. I'm not using analysis twice, but
There you
it's a
go.
mixed methods analysis of lived experiences of applied behavioral analysis.
Mhm.
Autistic lived experiences.
There
and
you
provided
go.
support. So I need to definitely polish that title.
Oh.
And so, yeah, my research topic is quantitative and qualitative mixed methods of experiences receiving and providing applied behavioral analysis in Canada.
Ah, you added a
Autistic, it's-
geography there at the end. Nice.
Yeah, and it's particularly for autistic young people and students.
Okay. Really appreciate that, Nancy. Next person,
I can go next.
please, Sherry.
All right, so my name is Sherry, and I'm going to present this poster with my colleague who is not here, Roxy. We are both PhD candidates in education. So our poster title will be Reimagining Higher Education for Refugees, the story of a teacher researcher method course. So that course was designed for Borderless Higher Education for Refugees project. And we did that teacher research method course. So there are 3 highlights that we would like to show in that picture, in that poster. The modifications that we did because everything was switched to online due to COVID-19. The refugee teachers, how they demonstrated ability to research and make education decisions in their community, and highlight the research that was shared in a symposium for Burr students. So that's basically what we're thinking right now. And yeah, so I think I said it all.
Thank you, Sherry. Next person, please. Please, Sharon. Sorry, Sharon and then Catherine.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sharon Murphy, and the title of my presentation or poster is going to be What Can Educational Assessment Learn from Feminist Philosophy, Law, and Architecture?
No, it's perfect. I'm writing it down. That's what I'm looking up. Okay, and a sentence about your research topic.
So the conversation on educational assessment is fairly stagnant and repetitive. And I'm trying to look at other disciplines to see if by selecting ideas from those disciplines, can we gain some insight into changing some of the ways we think about and practice educational assessment.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay.
And Catherine.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, my tentative poster title is Decolonizing Early Childhood Music. My name's Catherine Matro. And the research topic looks at early childhood music through Hannah Arendt's Crisis in Education, and particularly the responsibility of adults to assume authority and take responsibility.
Thank you very much. Sharon, your hand is up. Do you have a question right now, or? Probably not. Okay. We're good to go. We have four topics, names, research, questions. So this is really meant as an exercise to kind of loosen ourselves up a little bit. This is not your PhD defense thesis. Your poster is not going to mean any sort of major impact to your academic life. Yet your poster is going to demonstrate how completely immersed you are in a topic, okay? This is just Cora and I. It's just Cora and I talking to people that we've never met before, okay? So this was the purpose of this exercise. we had 4 people talk, 4 different approaches. The first person said their first name and pronouns. The second person said, my name is, and I'm going to present with a colleague. Put the colleague's name right there. The third person said their full name. All of this is to demonstrate that if you're standing by your poster, you need to kind of practice what you're going to say. Is your full name important in that conversation? Are you going to be more casual, or are you going to say, my name is so-so-so, PhD? Be ready for those introductions. They're not earth-shattering. You can change it on the go, but practice them. So that's why I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that even how we introduce ourselves matters to how you set up that whole conversation afterwards. Now, if this was in person, I would have actually not say anything, but to say the first person doesn't stand up from a chair, the second person doesn't stand up either. If the first person says their full name and stands up, the second person is going to stand up and say their full name as well. So it's this sort of idea of you're in a group, you're in a public place, you're going to demonstrate to somebody that you don't know yet your passion, your topic, what you care for many years. I'm sure your research is fully, like cemented in your brain. How are you going to present yourself to this magical audience? Your titles were quite fantastically to the point. You know what you're talking about. You know what you're going to say. Some are longer, some are actually shorter. Some titles contain the methodology in the title. Is that an important thing to put in a title of a poster? Is your methodology the thing that you're going to talk the most in your poster? If it's not, maybe it's not part of the title. What about the idea of, I'm picking on Nancy's response, who just kind of so beautifully kind of incorporated all of these important aspects, and then at the end is like in Canada. And I'm just picking on geography because I am a geographer, so I like geography. So every time somebody puts a geography in there, I'm like, ooh, is that important to the construct of my poster? And I would argue that yes, geography is always important. But my point with this exercise is just to say, all of these wonderful questions that we went through just a slide before matter even in just identifying the title, your name, and your research topic, right? Are you friendly about it? Am I disciplinary focused in it? Am I going to say qualitative, quantitative in a title? Well, probably not, right? It's mixed you said mixed methods, right? It was just a wonderful way for Cora and I to hear how you feel about the topic. And without a doubt, all 4 were, I know what I'm talking about. I know, and I care. So this is what we want you to kind of put into your poster design and your poster presentation. If you're not going to be by your poster, what do you need to represent, and how clear do you have to be if somebody reads it and there's nobody to answer their questions? Please remember that that's also a very important part of your poster design. If you're not there, is the poster answering any questions? And if you are there, what you're not going to put in the poster that you can verbally say. All very important. So assuming that everybody's going to have a poster presentation, if you're sitting next to it, we're going to go into the presentation bit and talk about multidisciplinarity matters. York is known for a multidisciplinary approach, even when we're in a discipline. And so please be aware that some of the jargon that we use unconsciously, because we lived in a specific discipline, will feel a little uneasy for somebody else. So if that's the case, are you there to answer that jargon to a potential audience? And if you're not going to sit by a poster, make sure you use plain language. I think that's the solid way forward with this. And we just really want you to know that the audience is really on your side. The audience is always going to be interested, is always going to want to investigate your topics and your research. So they're there to encourage you, not to do anything else, right? But you do have to actually understand that not everybody knows the same. Nobody's in your head the way that you are in your head and with your topic. So practice that idea of plain language. That's probably the best advice we can give. In the same time, you're all already very knowledgeable. You're all already very enthusiastic, as we saw from just this like 30 seconds per person. When you're in a presentation sort of environment, make eye contact, be inviting. Projecting your voice, God, that's hard. Oh my God, I cannot tell you how hard that is when you're in a room full of people and you have to say, ta-da. So just practice these things. Don't rush and breathe. It's very easy to say and not to practice. But practicing is very important, and time yourself. What is it that you're trying to do? Is your poster presentation going to be 30 minutes long? Nobody's going to sit next to your poster for 30 minutes just kind of listening to your speech. What happens if somebody comes in the middle of your speech, right? So try and keep your elevator speech to 2 minutes. What is it that your poster saying in 2 minutes? So that is a practice type of thing that we need to do. So with that theoretical mumbo jumbo that we talked about, let's get into the poster, okay?
Okay. So here are some key concepts that we're going to make sure we cover when we're talking about poster design. We're going to make sure that it's well organized with a logical visual flow. We're going to make sure that we create effective contrast, that we embrace white space, and it doesn't have to be white, it just has to be negative space, and that we use easy to read fonts in appropriate sizes and limit the amount of text that we're using. Okay, so what does a well-organized or logical visual flow mean? We want the visual elements to align with each other and create a sense of unity. So for us here, we're probably going to look at things going from left to right or from top to bottom. You could have a header, you could have 3 or 4 columns if it's in landscape format. Those are some pretty standard set like templates for a poster, like a research poster. You should also ensure that you are creating blocks of information that are integrated with visual aids, so that there's a logical flow from section to section. Your core areas will be highlighted using like very clear definition. And a consistent layout and organizational scheme will support accessibility. So if your information is all over the place, if there's somebody who has a visual impairment or a learning disability, there may be some accessibility issues that come into play when the information is not organized in an expected way. Okay, so let's move on. So what does creating effective contrast mean? So contrast creates visual interest. Contrast, like the highest amount of contrast would be black and white. So we know that. So strong contrast would ensure that it's drawing somebody's visual eye to the visual point. You can create focus where it's not needed with the wrong kind of contrast. So you want to use simple, light, neutral colored background that provides enough contrast with the text. You don't want to use a busy or distracting background. So patterned backgrounds, for example, would be a bad idea. So you want to choose one bold accent color and use it sparingly to help your poster stand out without being too distracting. And you want to make sure you leave enough clear space. This is what we're going to get into with a negative space to ensure that there are visible sections for your poster. So if you have questions about accessibility around contrast, so for example, if you've chosen a monochromatic color scheme and you want to ensure that your color choice is has high enough contrast that it's visually distinguishable, you can go to this WebAIM contrast checker and input your color choices, and it will allow you to see if your color choice is strong enough contrast at a regular font or a large font or for web accessibility. Okay, so we'll go on to the next slide. As we said, we want to make sure we have negative space. So the area between design elements like text and images, it doesn't have to be white. It can be colored negative space, but usually, having that high contrast or having that neutral background will help it to be more visually pleasing and also more clearly defined. And it will make your poster more simplified and easier to look at. Okay. With fonts, you want to make sure you use easy to read fonts in appropriate sizes. So don't use too many fonts. 1 or 2 is good. You can use different fonts just to highlight information, but you want to try to stick to fonts that are sans serif fonts like Arial or Verdana. Those are more accessible. So when I say sans serif, I mean that we want to use the fonts that don't have that little tick off the end of the letters. So for example, the word risk here, that would be a serif font. But then this one calculated is not. We want to ensure that we create contrast with size. So using distinguishing sizes for your headings and subheadings will help the reader to follow along the information in your poster. Use large enough size fonts that they can be read from about 1 meter away. So sometimes people might be walking by your poster. If your font size is large enough that they can see it from 1 meter away, that is a good thing to have. So we want to keep it between 70 points for your poster title, 40 to 50 for your headings, and 24 to 34 for the body of the text. You also want to avoid underlining and italics because those are visually distracting for the eye. Okay. So we want to make sure that we limit the amount of text that we use. So try not to go above 800 words. You want to ensure that when you are putting your information down, that you're not using a full paragraph, for example. You can use sentences when you're writing out some of your information, but bullet points are also very good. Don't copy and paste whole sections from your essay word for word. You want to make sure you're summarizing things and keeping it like succinct. You're going to use shorter sentences than you might normally use. You're also going to choose simple words. So for example, use instead of utilize. And you also want to make sure that you proofread it for everybody to be able to understand it. Don't just ask yourself to proofread it or friends or colleagues in your own faculty. If you have a layperson or a person in another faculty who could proofread it for you, that would also ensure that it's understandable to people who are not aware of some of the things that you're an expert on. Okay, so what are the required sections? We definitely want to make sure you have a catchy and meaningful poster title, something that's going to draw your audience in. And you want to have your name and your department and your affiliation, but do not include any personal identifying information. Keep yourself safe, and that is usually a really good rule of thumb. Just make sure you have ways that people can find you, but not personal information. Make sure you have your research question, your thesis statement or hypothesis, and one clear brief line. You will have your abstract, but it will be summarized. With your methods and methodology, make sure that it's a short description of how you conducted the research, but not your entire protocol. And then results and conclusions and summaries are also important. You want to make sure you also have your bibliography. Oh, I think that's actually on the next slide. Yeah, so you will have images. So for accessibility, make sure you caption or title your images or your charts. Provide a short citation as well. If you're borrowing things from Creative Commons or things that are open access, make sure you give credit where it's due. But when it comes to references or bibliographic information for your research, you want to have that on a separate document. An additional really nice consideration for accessibility would be to include a QR code or a tiny URL link where somebody who is not able to visually take in your poster could access an accessible version online. I think that is it for my section.
Yeah. So why don't we stop there for a minute and say, do you guys have any questions? Do you have any need for a clarification for what we covered so far?
There was one question in the chat is what is the usual size of an academic research poster?
So usually we do 24 by 36 landscape, and those are inches, or 2 feet by 3 feet. But that's just because the easels that we have, those are just the most cheap easels that you can buy. So, but I don't know about Congress.
Yeah, we're double checking on that. I think we have a slightly larger size, but I'd like to confirm that before. But I
Yeah.
think the size you're suggesting is what I think would be ideal. So maybe
Okay.
let's work with that assumption, and then if
Yeah.
I can clarify that for later.
That would be wonderful. So the next section is all about this. It's all about the idea of actually creating the poster. So we're going to show you 26 by 34, 2 feet by 3 feet. But just confer with your end product what it needs to be, okay? So if you guys want to do it in the same time with us, that would be great. If not, just watch me. But we're going to do step by step on how we're going to start this, okay? So there are a lot of people that have a lot of experience with fancy tools. And I'm calling them fancy tools because I don't have that sort of skill. So if you have knowledge about some sort of design program that you're going to use, that's fantastic. That's great. We're always recommending the more common, the easier to use type of technology. And in our case, it's a PowerPoint, which is exactly what you're seeing on your screen right now, okay? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to send the slides to you, but then we're going to do it together, okay? Sorry, there's a lot of conversation for some reason happening. So you should always test your design. There's a link to unnecessary text, we call it, where you can copy and paste chunks of text to see what it's going to look like, okay? So we're going to give you a link to Lorem Ipsum, which again is just block text, okay? We're also going to share with you a palette to choose a color palette that goes well together, the contrast that Cora already talked about, and how we're going to make that happen in a visually appealing yet accessible way. And we're going to give you links to Creative Commons images. But one of the most important things that we need to bring to your attention is this idea of the York brand. This is Congress. York is hosting Congress. There's going to be a lot of attention given to the whole image of Congress and what York does. Now, York has a brand for everything, for how we do our PowerPoints, for how, like all of these templates that we used here, right? These are from the York brand template for how to do PowerPoint stuff. I have not seen York brand for posters, except to say, my advice to you is please do not use the York logo. When you're going to click on York brand and you're going to learn how York wants the York logo to be used, you're going to go, not worth it. Not worth it for my poster. So we always tell students, don't include logos if they're not super important to your poster. You're already going to identify your affiliation to York. You're already going to talk about your institution, either in the title or how you're going to present your name, or your research. I don't think it's worth engaging with measuring how far from the edge a logo is and how big the white is versus the red and the line and the, oh my God. But please take the time. You have some time until the end of March to kind of create it and take a look at the York brand, okay? That's all. That I already said too much, but the idea is you have to be careful what you're putting on your poster in terms of what should go on the poster. So all of these links are going to be given to you. Now, this slide 23, it's how you start. And this is why I said the size of the poster is the most important, because you cannot design at 8.5 by 11 or whatever the default page is on any software that you use. You have to design at the printing size. So if you have a Windows machine, you open your PowerPoint, you go to the design tab, you click page slide setup, and then you change the size. Of course, the size is in centimeters, so you have to do the conversion. If the size of the poster is 24 inches by 36 inches, or 2 feet by 3 feet, you have to convert that into centimeters because that's what PowerPoint gives you. So you have to change the width and the height immediately. Before you do anything else, change the size of your canvas. If you're using a Mac, you open your PowerPoint, you go to File, and then click Page Setup. The same exact idea. You choose your landscape or portrait, and you change the actual size, also in centimeters for everything. Okay. Sorry, Lisa, you just put in posters for Congress will be 4 feet by 3 feet. There you go. Now I'm assuming that it could be landscape or portrait, so whatever, and change your size. Change your size. Say what's 4 feet in centimeters? What's 3 feet in centimeters? That's what we're going to do. Okay, that is the most important stuff. The second very, very useful thing to activate is under View. You're going to activate your ruler, your grid lines, and your guides. And you'll see in a minute how useful that is. So now obviously we're going to change the size for you to kind of fit whatever size you need to. So we'll do that before we send it to you. However, the idea of 1 inch away from the margin should be left empty is true for any size. During printing, some of the edges may be cut off by the printing services. So don't put anything in the 1 inch margin. It's not going to look bad if you have it on, 4 feet by 3 feet and then that sort of stuff. It's not going to look bad. Okay. It's better to have it than your text being cut off. So that's that. So here we go. I'm going to open a brand new PowerPoint. This is you. Close any other distractions. Get rid of all the current boxes. This is your canvas until you go to, somebody help me out. Where do we go? Oh yeah, design. Facade. Custom slide. Somebody tell me what's 4 feet by 3 feet tall in centimeters. Somebody Google it fast. I could, but I'm just lazy, so I'm just waiting for you.
So 4 feet is 122 centimeters. And 3 feet, sorry, is 91.4, so 92 maybe.
You can put decimals in here. They don't mind.
Oh, you
it.
can. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
I
Portrait
rounded
or-
up. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go
that's fine. Yep. Okay, maximize, yes. Or ensure fit. What do you guys think? From a design perspective, after what we talked, what do you think? Maximize or ensure fit?
Ensure fit, I would
I'd
think.
say
You got
ensure
it.
fit to be safe.
Absolutely. From the mistakes we've made before, we can tell you that ensure fit is the way to do it. So now this is your canvas. Do you see how the size changed, right? And it's not just about the size that you see in front of you, but it's also when you zoom in. And I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. Do you see here at the bottom where it says 25%? That's the size that we're seeing in front of us at the bottom. You're going to end up putting text. You're going to end up putting your images. Images are very finicky and very tricky, or graphs. If you copy and paste something that's not a high enough resolution, when you zoom in, and you should zoom in to where it says 100 or over 100, and check your images. If they're pixelated, when your zoom is at 100 or over, get rid of them, get another image. Okay, that's another reason why you have to kind of change your size first, because everything looks good when it's on a small screen, right? The moment you're in larger, and think about the fact that ensure fit ensures that they print at what it's going to look like when this number down here is 100. That's what's going to look like when it's printed. So now we're going to go to view, and I'm going to show you the ruler. Now, the 0 is in the middle. This is in centimeters, right? Remember, we changed this to the centimeters. So we're going from 0 to 60 and one side, 0 to 60 on the other. These are centimeters. And this distance here is a 3 centimeter. 1 inch is 2.4, right? So that's the sort of way to kind of don't design anything in this little pocket over here. How are you going to find out? Well, you're going to put in the grid lines. And now I'm just going to zoom really, really a lot. And see here's the 0, right? 1, 2 centimeters. This distance over here is 2 centimeters. So when you go to the edge of your poster, don't design anything in the first little block. Don't put any text, don't put any images. Another easier way to kind of design your poster, let me bring it down to, again, a smaller size so we can see what happens. So the grid lines will tell you the size. Now the guides will make you size. So this is at 0 and 0, right? 0 up and down, 0 left to right. Control Shift, it gives you another grid. Oh, now I have one area to, Control Click. Now I get to move these around in whatever fashion I see fit. You know what? I like the title to be about, that looks like a good size. Yeah, you know what? I've had the title there. I don't need, up to down, right to left. Decide now. Are you going to go up to down, left to right? Well, then this is one text. Maybe this is another text. Or maybe I want to do it in this fashion. So you just set the function in a way that it's going to make sense visually, and then you're going to change it. You can change it all the time. Then you're going to go to Insert, and you're going to insert a text box for each of these things. And you're going to leave it there. And you're going to, you're going to leave it if it makes sense. Insert, text box. You don't need to kind of add sizes to it or whatever, but you're going to start, remember the whole text, the fake text that you're going to put in. Sorry, I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom. And this is incredibly small. What's the size that I'm, it's 18. Remember how, Cora said 24 to 34. Now this canvas is bigger than the one we kind of gave you the estimates to. So I would go on the higher side and say at least 34, maybe 40. Right? So you're going to try, and that's why the Lorem Ipsum link that we're going to give you, you can just copy and paste text just to see how much you're going to fit in one text box, and then you're going to maybe show another one, and you're going to do your conclusions here, but this is going to be smaller, so your text will be a little bit different, and then you want to include an image. So let's say that we're going to include an image over here, and you go, I'm going to insert, and either you go to your own pictures where you're going to save your graphs, your whatever images you want, or you can go to your photo album or whatever you need to, stock images, I'm going to go there, or you're going to go to your device for whatever pictures you save in there. So I'm just going to include this and insert. Depending on the quality, the size, it's going to do stuff like this. So you have very carefully need to resize it. And you go, that's all the space I have. Oh, that's squished. That doesn't look any better. But what am I going to do? Oh, the ratio. So you have to be aware. You can't really tell. At this size, you can't. So remember when I said that you have to kind of increase the size to see what this looks like at 100. Is this image clear enough at 100? Am I happy with this? Or is this too elongated? Yeah, you know what it is. It doesn't look right. So that's how you're going to do your adjustments, and you're going to check the quality of your images. And then you're going to zoom out again. And it's not as bad as you think. You just need to know the software enough to manipulate 3 major areas: the insert, either text or art or whatever. And then the other area is the view, where you're going to activate the grid lines to kind of focus your parsing that idea of the blank spaces and the up to down, left to right. Some people want to use numbers. Some people, and a third major thing is the setup of the page, right? So these are the things: page setup, the view, grid lines, and then the idea of insert what you need to insert. Now, so this is a text box, and some people want to go to the text box and fill it in color. And that's one way to kind of ensure that it's a block color. And maybe you start with a gradation. Bad idea, actually. Please don't do that. It's very confusing to the eye. You'll see in a minute, we have some examples. But you can achieve your color blocks just by changing the text box fill. So you click on the text box, and then you go under fill. And this is where the color palette link really is helpful. It's going to give you all the proper color numbers or names or whatever you're going to work with to include that in your poster. I'm going to show you some examples of people that chose not to go this way and even choose a whole background as an image. So let me just demonstrate something else. You could insert an image, and I'm just going to go again to stock images because it's easier for us right now. And we're going to go this. There's the insert image. And it gives me to this, and it could be your own image or it could be something that you chose. So some people did this. They set their canvas to something like this. And they clicked on this image and then they did all kinds of stuff. For example, send to back. So then your text appears on top of it. Very, very problematic for accessibility visuals, but you can also make the picture transparent. So when you go, where is that? It's somewhere in here. It's format the picture. So you can go to picture, is it this one? No, it's here. Picture transparency. So you can increase the transparency of an image to kind of just fade in the background. And then the contrast becomes more apparent as well. I personally don't like doing it this way. You lose track of it. It's back to front and you lose text. But I know that people are very tempted to give the background a personalized feeling, not just a blank canvas and then work with colors within it. But that said, let's go back to our PowerPoint. And see, when I did the grid line, it shows everywhere. It shows in all the PowerPoints that are open, right? I'm just going to put this up there and forget about the topics and stuff like that. What's your first instinct? Oh, by the way, let me get rid of the grid line so it's easier to see. There you go. Too many images, not enough images, yellow background, good contrast. Up to down, right to left, I don't know, right? So what's your feeling about something like this?
I think that they have too many images of the wrong scale.
Right,
And
different
I think
sizes.
that the title, it's set down, but the eye travels from left to right. And so you fight with looking at that title and then trying to decide where you're going to go next, so that in terms of a layout, the way your eye travels is it hits Victorian abroad, and then it's trying to make up its mind. Should it go to that great big picture? Should it go over to the side? And the print is very small.
We're done.
Yeah.
We're done, right? Here's another, please, you know, don't pay attention to the topic or whatever, but this is one of those things where I know the logo was not done right and we heard about it. So anyway, I'm just giving you these as a, like, look how much text is in here. Who's going to read the abstract? Well, it depends, because this poster could have been presented without the person next to them, and it could have been displayed for the whole day. In this case, fine, go for it. You're not going to, you know, I mean, how many people are going to read all of that? I don't know. But this was not a poster presentation where somebody's going to sit next to it to explain to you what it is. This was left by itself, right? Not saying that is good or bad. That's, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. But these are considerations. That's why it's important to know. You're going to be there. You're going to talk about it. You're not going to be there. How big it is. What's important. Here's one that did an interesting job with the color backgrounds to kind of identify their chunks, you know, abstract in one color results in a color that goes over, you know what I mean? Like, and there's purple for discussion and references in pink or whatever, you know? So it was interesting how people's personal, I don't know, preferences, you know, about colors and, you know, however they want to do this, it's all up to you. You have to feel good about what you're presenting within the realms of how would others present. So design it for you, really, but then pretend that you're somebody else looking at it. So how do you feel about it, right? Here's one that is so absolutely disciplinary specific, that unless you're in that discipline, you have no idea what this is all about, right? But that's okay. It was a disciplinary conference where they presented this. Yours is not. So remember that, yours is not. Yours is a multidisciplinary audience, right? So that's all we had to say about that. We're gonna adjust the sizes tomorrow just to fit your 3 by 4 feet and send it to you. You'll have the instructions there. And how do you feel about it? Doable? Good? Bad? I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see.
Yeah, I think for me, this has given me a sense of, you know, some of the technical aspects of it. I mean, I love the discussion of the aesthetics and what would be effective and has made me think, but it's also helped me understand what then you do when you open that PowerPoint. I've only ever used PowerPoint, you know, in the most basic function. So I feel inspired to try out some of that, the 3 things that you said. I'll need to look back at the recording to remember what they are, or the guide that you send. But yeah, I feel quite excited about what could be possible. So
It will be awesome. That'll be great.